How is everybody doing? We made it to Friday. Welcome to the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Don't forget, you can catch an episode Monday through Friday on WQEE. That's a radio station in Noonan, by the way, 99.1 on your FM dial. We have got such a jam-packed show, as Philip Jordan is going to be joining us. And he's going to come on later in the show to preview some college football coming up this week. There's a lot to talk about. I'm going to cram most of it in an hour. But like when Carl Lewis said once he sang the national anthem, I'll make up for it. All right. Shohei Ohtani, he joins the 50-50 club. I actually watched every at-bat. He had 2 stolen bases, went 6 for 6. The Dodgers put up 20 runs. And he just is incredible. And I was actually entertaining the idea he might go for the 60-60 club, but not quite. But it's an incredible accomplishment that happened in my lifetime. I remember when I was a kid and seeing Barry Bonds do the 40-40, Jose Canseco doing the 40-40 club. And I just wanted to see this in my lifetime, that somebody joins the 50-50 club. Hey, the Braves, they get the 15-3 victory over the Reds. They are still 2 back from the Mets because the Mets got the win over the Phillies 10-6. So the wild card watch, they are still got to get some wins. They play the Marlins for a 3-game series. Then they play the Mets for a 3-game series at Truist Park, and they close out the season against the Kansas City Royals. Hey, yesterday was the final regular season game in the WNBA, so the playoffs are set. They're going to start Sunday. The Atlanta Dream get into the playoffs as they beat the New York Liberty, and that's who they have to face in the first round of the WNBA playoffs. The defending 2-time champion Las Vegas Aces taking on the Seattle Storm. You got Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever taking on the Connecticut Sun. Cannot wait for that matchup between Caitlin Clark and the glove, Dejanay Carrington. I talk about her all the time on the show. Minnesota taking on the Phoenix Mercury. Is this going to be the swan song for Diana Taurasi? Is this going to be her last season as the Phoenix Mercury trying to go out on top? WNBA playoffs this Sunday. Can't wait. One match I do want to talk about, Atlanta United did take on Inter Miami FC on Wednesday. It's just a jam-packed Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Lionel Messi did get into the game. So if you got tickets and you wanted to see Lionel Messi, well, you got your money's worth, as they ended in a 2-2 draw. They're still on the outskirts, probably not going to get into the playoffs, but Inter Miami could win the MLS Cup, and that's just another trophy for Lionel Messi. All right, going to talk about the high school games that happened yesterday. We did have the Spencer Jordan game on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. What an incredible triple header, because we had softball between Northside and Harris County. Rick Beach from Kutsu Sports was on the call. Northside did get the 5-1 victory over Harris County. It was Pacelli Senior Night in volleyball, as Pacelli ends up beating Shaw in 3 sets, and Thrift Behringer was on the call for that. And Noah Shelton was on the call down at Otis Spencer Stadium for Spencer Jordan, the Spencer Green Wave. They win that game 56-17. They go to 3-2 on the season. And Columbus loses to Carver at Kinnett Stadium as Carver wins 49-0. Some of the other games from Thursday night, Callaway ends up winning their third straight as they defeated Redan 34-6. LaGrange gets a big road victory over Spalding 42-22. Here's some of the games. We're going to start with Georgia. These are all the games that are in Georgia. I'm going to run them down really quick. You got Shaw hosting Sumter County at Kinnett Stadium. Hardaway is hosting Kendrick at Otis Spencer Stadium. We've got Central Talbotton that's hosting Atkinson County. Troup County is hosting Fayette County. Manchester's on the road taking on Chapel Hill. Sandy Creek is on the road taking on Trinity Christian. Upson Lee is hosting Whitewater. Heritage is on the road taking on Rock Springs. Chaco on the road in Montezuma taking on Macon County. Lake Oconee is taking on Landmark Christian. Taylor County is down in Buena Vista taking on Marion County. Schley County is hosting Crawford County. Noonan is on the road taking on Morrow. East Coweta taking on the defending 4A state champions Perry. Pacelli at Dimal Field is hosting Whitefield Academy. You got Langston Hughes taking on Dutchtown. Lovejoy taking on McIntosh. Northgate taking on Bananaker. Griffin taking on Stars Mill. Harris County on the road taking on Jonesboro. Brookstone is hosting Stratford Academy. And Flint River is on the road taking on Dominion. By the way, that Harris County-Jonesboro game we will have on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Rick Beach from Kutsu Sports will be on the call. The Whitefield Academy-Pacelli game, Dave Plata and Rex Castillo are going to be on the call. Both games on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Now let's move over to Alabama as Mike Peacock will be on the call for Glenwood and Beulah as Glenwood 4-0 on the season. They are ranked 8th, according to the Alabama Sports Writers Association. Taking on the Beulah Bobcats that took one on the chin last week, losing to Lee Scott 24-7. But this is going to be just a fantastic region matchup. Opelika is hosting Smith Station. Central hosting Enterprise. You got Reeltown on the road taking on Lochapoka. Sylacauga taking on Central Clay. Jag is at the Duck taking on the Auburn Tigers. Carver Montgomery is taking on Dothan. Russell County is hosting Park Crossing. Lee Scott Academy is up in Wadowee taking on Randolph County. Booker T. Washington is hosting Claiborne County. Carrollton is taking on A.H. Parker. This is a border war as Carrollton is one of the top teams in Georgia. Lafayette taking on Lynette. Tallahassee is hosting Bullock County. Percy Julian is on the road taking on Pike Road. Elmore County on the road taking on Beauregard. Valley is hosting Marbury. Comer is up taking on Childersburg. Hanley is hosting Munford. Eufaula hosting Carroll. Notasulga is on the road taking on Keith. And we got Pike Liberal Arts down in Barber County. And so that is high school football. That's the Reader's Digest version of high school football. Let's talk about the Thursday night game that happened, the New York Jets and the New England Patriots. And the Jets ended up getting the win over the Pats, and they go to 2-1. Aaron Rodgers looked great. The defense looked great, and the Patriots, who dominated this rivalry, just couldn't get anything going on offense. And I don't have a final score because it's actually 2 minutes left to go in the fourth, and it's 24-3. So all you fantasy owners, you're hoping that Jacoby Brissett gets maybe a touchdown pass to Hunter Henry, and then you might do well in your fantasy, because I know that I would have started Hunter Henry on my fantasy team. All right, college football. We got some exciting matchups in college football. I'm going to start with the local teams because you have Georgia Tech taking on Louisville. That's going to be 3:30 on ESPN2. That's going to be a tough matchup. I still believe that Haynes Keene is one of the top quarterbacks in the ACC. Georgia Southern's got a big game against Ole Miss. That's going to be in Oxford, 7:45 on the ESPN network. And Arkansas and Auburn. I know that Philip Jordan and I are going to preview this game. Hank Brown, 6 touchdowns, no picks. He is definitely an upgrade from Peyton Thorne. And Cam Coleman is listed as questionable in this game. But I expect our Arkansas and Auburn just to be a fantastic game. The college football game that happened last night, South Alabama, who 1 week removed from putting up 87 points against Northwestern State, get the 48-14 win over App State in Boone, North Carolina on the road. Friday's games, we've got some incredible games. Illinois and Nebraska, both teams are ranked. Stanford is taking on Syracuse. Looking forward to seeing Kyle McCord. That game is going to be 7:30 on ESPN. And then San Jose State, Washington State, both teams are 3-0. That's going to be on the CW network. Who's coming up with these contracts? All right, let's look at some top 25 matchups in college football. We're going to start with the number 3 team in the nation. Noon kickoff on Fox as Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt will be on the call for Ohio State and Marshall. Do not be fooled. That Marshall head coach, he's a hoot. I'm telling you. I mean, he's trying to lure some players to transfer to Marshall because of the biscuits. I thought that was hilarious. Marshall, the Thundering Herd, they're not named after Colin Cowherd, but they did defeat Notre Dame last year. That's something to watch out for. Has Ohio State played anybody? And when will they start playing somebody that, is worthy to play? They played Akron and Western Michigan. We really don't know how good Ohio State's going to be. Probably not until they face Oregon on October the 12th. And then they got Nebraska and Penn State. That will be the testament to see how good Ohio State is. I still think Jeremiah Smith is one of the best receivers as far as freshmen go. NC State Clemson, that's going to be a pretty good game. Grayson McCall going up against Cade Klubnik. Iowa State is hosting Arkansas State. Penn State hosting Kent State. Remember, Tennessee put up 71 points on Kent State. Penn State needs to roll. They have struggled a little bit. The 3:30 CBS game, if you're a fan of Gary Danielson, we've got USC and Michigan. Miller Moss, which I think is a very good quarterback, going up against a Michigan team that now has Alex Sorgi as their quarterback. Still got Donovan Edwards. Still got a pretty good defense. But I think Michigan is not the same team that won the national championship, obviously. LSU taking on UCLA. UCLA is just not ready to be in the Big Ten. They're struggling this year. They have not looked impressive at all. Notre Dame trying to get back on track, taking on Miami of Ohio. We got Northern Illinois taking on Buffalo. Utah and Oklahoma State, as we've got 2 teams just are looking like they could be favorites to win the Big 12. I think the winner of this game could be in the driver's seat for the Big 12. Missouri taking on Vanderbilt. Miami on the road taking on South Florida. Looking forward to that game. Tennessee, Oklahoma, that's going to be College Game Day and the Everyday Saturday Tour, the whole new Saturday Tour. There, I got it right. Texas A&M Bowling Green. You got Texas, who's going to start Arch Manning. That's taking on Louisiana Monroe. And then in the late night 10:30 game, Kansas State taking on BYU. Maybe Kansas State might be a dark horse to win the Big 12 because the way they beat Arizona, I'm pretty impressed by what they did. Also, another local game, Mercer, who's 3-0, is hosting the Citadel, who's 2-1 at Five Star Stadium, 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus. A big shout out to Bryce Kuhn, who has been a guest on the show. He was the voice of Mercer football on ESPN Plus, or at least one of the voices before he took the job at 24/7 Sports in Baton Rouge, covering everything LSU. So that is pretty cool. I know that I reached out, Billy Lindahl up in the Carrollton area. West Georgia is also on ESPN Plus. And so, just trying to build that network with the connections. And maybe one day I can fulfill a lifelong dream to call games on ESPN. All right, that's neither here or there. Let's move on to the National Football League. And I have my NFL picks because I didn't have an opportunity to do the picks to hit with Ryan O'Neal on WQEE on Tuesday mornings because I'm actually out of town and I don't come back for another week. I got one more week out of town. I'm going to do the picks right here on the Sports Beat. Let's start with this 2-0 teams, San Diego and Pittsburgh. San Diego trying to go 3-0 for the first time since 2012. Jim Harbaugh is making all the difference in the world for the San Diego Chargers. Pittsburgh still has only had one offensive touchdown so far on the season. I like the Chargers on the road. Houston at Minnesota. Justin Jefferson might play. Sam Darnold actually outplayed Brock Purdy in that game between the Vikings and the 49ers. But I love C.J. Stroud. He's got the weapons. Tank Dell. He's got Stephon Diggs. I think that C.J. Stroud is going to get the road victory, and Houston gets the win here to go 3-0. Eagles and the Saints. Eagles are in trouble because if they lose to the Saints, I think that Nick Sirianni's on the hot seat. They coughed up a game against the Falcons last week. That was a game they should have won. Saquon Barkley is supposed to make that catch. They're supposed to run out the clock, and it's supposed to be 2-0 right now. The Saints have been the most explosive offense in the first 2 weeks, probably in the history of the league. I'll have to go look at the Elias Sports Bureau. I tried applying for a job there once. But I do think that Clint Kubiak is going to be the next hot coordinator, and the Saints just look fantastic. I think the Saints win this game. Denver at Tampa Bay. I think Tampa wins this game to go to 3-0, and now all of a sudden the NFC South is now a juggernaut. So, in Denver, I think they're still struggling. Bo Nix is going to be a good quarterback eventually, just taking on a very good Tampa Bay team. Green Bay at Tennessee. I know I've been kind of going back and forth on this. Malik Willis, he's got an opportunity to get revenge on the team that let him go. I do think the Packers end up getting the win here because I don't trust Will Levis. The Giants, the G-Men, like Chris Berman says, taking on the Cleveland Browns. The Giants are not very good, and the Browns are competent. They got a pretty good defense. Deshaun Watson is not losing games for you. He's not the Deshaun Watson of old, but the Browns have such a great team around Deshaun Watson. David Njoku is going to be playing. Jerome Ford, which I would start on your fantasy team. I know the Browns can't wait for Nick Chubb to get back. They also have Amari Cooper. They've got some weapons, and I think the Browns get the win here. Chicago taking on Indianapolis. I'm not a believer that Caleb Williams is the guy just yet. He needs help. He's running for his life. The O-line is not very good. I thought that the weapons around the Bears, like Rome Odunze and, Keenan Allen, and you also have DJ Moore, Cole Kmet. I thought, DeAndre Swift, I thought that these would be the appropriate weapons for Caleb Williams to get that offense going. But you got to remember, Matt Eberflus is a defensive-minded coach. And I think that he could be on the hot seat if the Bears don't start winning. And Indianapolis, there's something wrong with Anthony Richardson. He might still be injured, but he hasn't figured out just the pass percentage. You cannot complete less than 60% of your passes and improve after year two. He was great out the gate last year, but once that injury occurred, and he hasn't been the same. So I do think that Indianapolis does win because they're playing at home. Carolina, they benched Bryce Young. Andy Dalton is now the quarterback. They just don't have talent around Andy Dalton. I think that there was a lot of blame, and they just passed blame on Bryce Young. He just doesn't have a great team around him. And I thought with the addition of Dave Canales, because you saw how well he developed Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay, it just is not working out. And Bryce Young could go down as one of the biggest busts in NFL history. I think the Raiders win this game. I think that win over the Baltimore Ravens gave them a lot of confidence, and plus they're playing in Vegas. Miami at Seattle. Seattle's the surprise team, and I think that they are going to be 3-0. Tyler Huntley is now the starter, as Tua Tagovailoa is now on the IR. The Dolphins are banged up. Raheem Mostert's not going to play in this game, so they got to rely on Devon Achane. But Seattle ends up getting the win because it's in Seattle. You got the 12th man. They got a great team around Geno Smith. He doesn't have to do it all himself. He's got a great receiving core. Kenneth Walker is a great running back, and that defense can play lights out. Not necessarily the Legion of Boom, but a decent defense. All right, Baltimore at Dallas. Baltimore could easily go 0-3. I think that whoever loses this game, their fan base is going to panic, and they're going to have an overreaction Monday. If Dallas loses and they're 1-2, the place is just going to go nuts. Skip Bayless is going to get on his podcast and talk about the sky is falling. He's going to have that little, gimmick where he throws away the Dak Prescott jersey, and then Stephen A. Smith is just going to laugh because, he always gloats every time the Cowboys lose. But I think Cowboys win here because they got blown out by the Saints last week. The Cowboys are still a good team, and Baltimore has struggled a little bit. Lamar Jackson has never started 0-2, and now Baltimore should be 2-0 because I think that they could have beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and they should have beat the Raiders last week. But I think Dallas wins because they're at home. Detroit and Arizona. This is going to be a very good game. But I think Arizona, Kyler Murray might win Comeback Player of the Year. And Marvin Harrison Jr. and McBride as a tight end, James Conner as a running back, they've got a very explosive offense. Remember, Jonathan Gannon was part of that Super Bowl appearance by the Eagles as the defensive coordinator. He's a very good coach. I think that the Cardinals are going to be the most improved team in the NFL, and they get a win against the Lions. But this is going to be a back-and-forth game. I'm looking forward to just seeing both teams, and this is why I love having the NFL Red Zone channel, because I get to see all this. 49ers at Rams, both teams are banged up. The 49ers are not going to have George Kittle because he didn't practice yesterday. So the 49ers will be without Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle. I still think Brock Purdy, he's got Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings. You're going to see Chris Conley. You're going to see some other players step up. Jordan Mason might have a big game. The Rams are more banged up than the 49ers. You take Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua out of that lineup, who do the Rams have left? Matthew Stafford cannot do it all by himself. And I think the Rams defense is just not the same without the leadership of Aaron Donald. I think the 49ers win in practically a home game because there's going to be more 49er fans at SoFi Stadium than Rams fans. And then the Sunday night game, everybody is picking the Chiefs. My heart wants to pick the Falcons, but I think this is what's going to happen. I think that the Falcons have a big lead on the Kansas City Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes brings them back and does just magical things. And the narrative Monday morning is going to be Patrick Mahomes is amazing. Now, they don't have Isaiah Pacheco. Samaje Perine is going to be the running back. So I don't even think Kareem Hunt, who hasn't played for the Chiefs since 2017, I think he got added to the practice squad. Travis Kelce's getting up there in age. Hollywood Brown's on the IR. Xavier Worthy is a rookie. Rashee Rice hasn't really been that reliable. They already cut Kadarius Toney because they didn't like the fact that he drops the football. If there's anybody that will step up for the Chiefs, it's the defense. You got to watch out for Chris Jones on that right side. So, you get Caleb McGarry going up against Chris Jones, and Kirk Cousins has got to get a little bit of mobility because the one thing that the Chiefs do best, they like to swat the ball and they get after the quarterback. And so Kirk Cousins has got to find a little bit of mobility. I think the game plan for the Falcons is just to run the ball with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. But that Chiefs D-line, if they stop the run, I kind of feel like Kirk Cousins is not suited to get into a shootout with Patrick Mahomes. I do think the Chiefs win. It's going to be a great game. The Falcons are finally on Sunday Night Football. This has been incredible. And I can almost guarantee you that they are going to pan to Taylor Swift at least 5 times in the game. I'm calling it. The over-under is 5. I'm going to say 5 times they go to the press box. And it's not going to be every time Travis Kelce touches the ball because he might only have like 4 catches. But this has been a great show. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, you can catch an episode every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Facebook page and YouTube channel. And that is going to do it here. Stay tuned for the radio audience only. I got Philip Jordan coming on the show. That as we aired that on Facebook Live the night before. So have a great night, everybody.